Okay, so this is Ever, and I'm Brandon, and thanks for joining us for Exploding Earth's Halloween weekend. Now, despite our Ninja Turtles shirts, which are super cool, Mom wanted us to do a photo shoot, also explaining the pink backdrop. We're going to be talking about The Watchmen. And unlike the last few weeks of Halloween weekend, where I've kind of been recommending stuff for you guys to do by yourself on the weekend, instead, this week we're going to do something that you can do together. Now, Ever might be a little too young for this, but one day I hope to play this game with her. We're going to be talking about the Mayfair Watchmen RPG games. Okay, so the cool thing about these RPG games is that technically they're the only other material sanctioned per se by Alan Moore when it comes to Watchmen. And a lot of fans of the series, a lot of diehards, I'm going to have a heart attack this episode. We got to get this book out of here, kid. You're going to destroy my Watchmen copy. I love you. A lot of diehard fans of this book, this book right here, consider the RPG games in canon. We're going to let Ever go now. She doesn't want to be here anymore. Bye, Ever. Okay, so there's actually technically 3 different games that Mayfair published for this series of RPGs. So if you've played any of the DC Heroes RPGs that Mayfair did back in the 80s, same rules apply to these. It works exactly the same way. If you've never played an RPG before, it's really fun to jump into because it's characters that maybe you already know and a world that you already know, and so you can really focus on just developing your character in the game and understanding the rules of the game and this sort of thing. So the first 2 games that came out were Who Watches the Watchmen, which is the only one I've actually played, and Taking Out the Trash. There was also a third one that came later in the 90s, and I'll have a link to that one in the description below. Each game you should ballpark is probably taken anywhere between 3 and 8 hours, depending on how much you want to get into it. Maybe in future episodes I'll get into some of the other DC hero games, as well as Marvel has some cool RPGs of their own, but our focus for this week, the Watchmen RPG games. The only one that I've actually played is the Who Watches the Watchmen module, which was the first one written, and I know that Alan Moore had a lot to do with it, talking back and forth with the writer of the game. Okay, so here's the thing. I can't give away anything about that game, but I can tell you that there's a great parallel between that game and the Watchmen story. So let's say you're a diehard Watchmen fan who's steadfast in the fact that Alan Moore's vision is all that you want to see in the series. Or maybe you're a fan of Doomsday Clock and everything else that's being done right now with Watchmen. Either way, I think this series is a great universe-building tool because Alan Moore did obviously sanction these games to be made. He participated in the writing process thereof and helped these writers along finding the story that they eventually landed on. Even though one of these games was written after Alan Moore's very public departure from DC, the writer is one of the writers that was developing the earlier modules, so I think we're safe to say he probably had Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' blessing on this. Now, if you're a completist, there's actually a set of figures that go along with the game created by Grenadier. Back, I think they came out the same year as the game, if not mistaken, but you're probably seeing them somewhere around here on the screen right now. It's a really cool game, man. I really want to tell you more. We might actually do this game on an episode of one of our shows, just play it, or just play it on the YouTube channel, just so you guys can have an idea. I know that Paula has wanted to do this for a while. I know Devin from Movies From My Life, who I do Movies From My Life with, if you've ever listened to that podcast, would be down to do this because he's a much better games master than I am. This is actually the only game that I've ever played the role of games master. So that's my suggestion for this week. So it's kind of a cool idea to maybe plan a party around or something like that, invite a bunch of friends over and play an RPG like maybe you did when you were a teenager playing D&D or something like that. Okay, so here's the problem though. If you want to play this game, how do you do it? Mayfair Games closed up shop back in 2018. Well, firstly, that kind of puts the copyright into a little bit of a gray area. So what I can tell you is that there's actually copies of all of these on archive.org. I've put links in the description below. Who knows if they'll stay up, but for now they are there. Additionally, you can find these games all the time on eBay and also in the Odd Collector's shop. So as I said off the top, I'm Brandon. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Exploding Earths. Remember to like and subscribe on this channel. We've got our new Comic Book Day Top 5 every Wednesday. Every other Monday we have Movie Mondays. We have Debate Comics here. We have a lot of stuff going on and a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. We also have all of our shows available for you in podcast form, so check that out. I think that's about it. Thanks for hanging out with me.